Welcome into WTOL 11's Black History Month special. I'm your host, Tatiana Cash, and we have a lot in store for today. Now, this marks 98 years of the United States celebrating Black history. Black History Month actually started out as Negro History Week back in 1926. Its founder, historian Carter G. Woodson, felt it important to focus on the history of Black people here in America. The specific reason for the date was actually because the second week in February coincided with Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthdays. Now, earlier this February, the Ohio History Channel hosted a segment, Who Needs Black History Month?, featuring the University of Cincinnati's African-American history professor, Holly McGee. Now, she explains more and why Woodson created the annual celebration.
What he wanted to do was to disseminate positive information and positive images about Blacks to society at large. If you think about it, he wanted to do the same thing that W.B. Du Bois wanted to do when he encouraged Blacks to fight in World War I. He thought, W.B. Du Bois and Woodson, Carter G. Woodson, believed if we can humanize ourselves in the eyes of America and in the eyes of whites, they won't treat us like dogs. They won't kill us like dogs in the streets. Because the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment weren't really doing anything.
Now, the amendments she just spoke of, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, are known as the Civil War or Reconstruction Amendments. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, abolished slavery. In July 1868, the 14th Amendment was ratified, giving citizenship to all people born in the U.S., and the 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870, gave Black Americans the right to vote. So the question of why celebrate Black History Month is one that's, of course, asked every year by at least a couple folks. So WTOL 11 actually spoke with some people over at the University of Toledo to hear their thoughts on this.
It means a lot. It means that all the contributions of people from around the world have made an impact. People from the African diaspora, and how important it is for our students to learn that history in order to carry on to a rich future.
Black History Month is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, seeing as it is my heritage of the culture that plays a humongous part in the lives of Black people, pertaining to the culture, resilience, and the growth that the Black community has had throughout the years, especially through the trials and tribulations of life.
I would say Black History Month means to me is giving the voice to the voiceless. You know, a lot of times our voice was shut down over the years, and now we're taking that power back. So with Black History Month, it's really us showing that we're here, we're loud, and we're proud to be Black. And not only that, but we have such high roles on campus. We're running orgs, we're doing big things on campus. So that's what it really means to me.
And it's not just adults, of course, who have opinions on this. We spoke with some kids as well.
Amazing people who saved the world. We should take the time and appreciate the people who helped us in Black History Month, and, you know, just be confident in everything.
Black History Month means to me is that when you get the person that you want, you get to say stuff about the person, and you get to dress up like the person to tell other people about the person that does not know about the person.
Black History Month means to me is to celebrate Black figures and the amazing stuff they do for us. We should celebrate it. In my opinion, we should celebrate it every day because it's just Black history.
Now, those kids are students who actually put on a Black History Month open house program at Winterfield Venture Academy. Now, with exhibits and projects that focused on African-American historical figures, school staff say it's a great way for students to reflect on history and celebrate Black culture.
When you look at our history books and the things that they learn day to day in social studies, we don't celebrate and we don't learn about Black culture. So this is an opportunity for them to actually experience their own Black culture and Black excellence.
Now, History.com notes long periods where Black Americans were fighting for freedom, respect, and just better opportunities. One way was through the Army as Tuskegee Airmen in World War II. The National World War II Museum says before then, no Black man had ever been a United States military pilot. Segregation and widespread discrimination in the U.S. Armed Forces kept official segregation until 1948. World War II laid the foundation for post-war military integration. Now, to learn more about the Tuskegee Airmen, the National Museum of Great Lakes has an exhibit in honor of these famed airmen. Many pilots were sent from Tuskegee, Alabama to train at the Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan.
This is a way to bring these men and what they did back out into the open again. And it's not that it was closed, it's just maybe forgotten. And again, forgotten that they were up here.
Data in 1941 finds less than 4,000 blacks served in the military, but by 1945, it was more than 1.2 million. The Tuskegee Airmen exhibit will be on display at the Great Lakes Museum until the end of March. Then in the mid-1960s, for the first time, black and white soldiers fought alongside each other in the Vietnam War. Now, without question, there was friction, but there were many cases of men becoming brothers. Our Dan Cummins shares Jack Robinson's story, a Vietnam Army vet who served from 1967 to 1970.
So I went home, I told Mom, as the mom said, I just enlisted for the Army. I thought she was gonna kill me. My dad looks at me and says, proud of you, son.
Jack went to basic training, spent time at Fort Knox, excelling in engine mechanics. He was fast-tracked into learning and maintaining a Huey helicopter and was sent to Vietnam as a Huey crew chief in 1968. Transporting soldiers into and out of trouble. Race? It was there, but not in his aircraft.
You get calls over the radio, and you're listening, and you never ask, was this guy black? Was he white? Is he fat? Is he thin? All we wanted to know is your location and how many of you is there.
His chopper was shot at a lot. One close call he'll never forget. Back at base, someone noticed a bullet hole in the rotor, then a hole in the roof of the Huey.
And one look, I said, wow. So looking, there's a hole in the floor. I was sitting looking like this. It came up to the floor between my legs, missed my head, and out through the roof and through the main rotor blade.
The Huey was his responsibility. One moment stands out. As Viet Cong would send out civilians, even children, with explosives, one day it looked like a 10-year-old with a bomb.
He had a backpack on. I'm thinking, nah, and they go, shoot him, shoot him. And he just kept walking towards our aircraft. So that's the one time in my life, Dan, that I know that I fired at someone and right before my eyes, it just disappeared.
That haunted Jack for 20 years. He has suffered from PTSD, but a VA counselor recommended he write a letter telling that very story. Sometimes putting a haunting memory into words can heal. When he came back home to the States, it was obvious Americans did not like the war or the warriors.
You know, like they spit on us in the airport. And I thought, well, they spit on me because I was a black guy. And what it was, they did not like military people.
Jack has lived in Perrysburg since 2012. I first met him at a group session with other veterans at Interstate Lanes. And he went on honor flight with us this past June, all part of a long road of life, being proud of his service.
Now, after the war, Jack worked at Ford for 50 years, and he's retired and living in Perrysburg, enjoying time with his grandchildren. Now, from the military, of course, from the military to the front lines at home, the Toledo Firefighters Museum is participating in Black History Month by highlighting the history of the city's African-American firefighters. From the first 4 who were stationed at Station 11 in 1898 to the firefighters of Station 8, who were often referred to as the minority station. The history of Toledo Fire is filled with people who put their lives on the line despite discrimination and prejudice.
Because kids are always going to look at firefighters and think that they're heroes that don't wear capes. And the more chances that they have to see someone that looks like them, the more they're going to think it's something that they can do. And it'll become a dream or a goal for them.
Yes, now the Toledo Firefighter Museum is open every Saturday from noon to 4, and it is free admission. Lucas County kicked off its celebrations by raising the Toledo Pan-African flag at one government center earlier this month. The flag replaces the Lucas County flag flying at City Hall in honor, of course, of Black History Month. The government officials say the flag will fly all of February.
It shows a level of unity in our community. It also shows equality in our community. And so we are just thankful that we have an opportunity to have this event to kick off Black History Month.
Throughout the city, important conversations about improvement within the Black community, of course, are being held. And one of the hardest ones, mental health and faith, is actually taking center stage through NAMI. Depression, anxiety, the list goes on. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention finds untreated mental health is causing suicide to be one of the leading causes of death in the U.S. Earlene Belcher lost her grandson to suicide, and she says disorders combined with stigmas stop many in the Black community from getting help.
I've been told that I know that people that take their lives go to hell. So when people hear that, if they're in depression, they don't reach out.
Belcher wants these stigmas removed, saying it could be monumentally helpful. NAMI's Sonia Quinn agrees, saying another important step is admitting when you need help.
It's okay not to be okay. Is that a cliche? But it's true. We have to break down the reality of mental health and of suicide in the Black community.
While the CDC finds Black Americans' rates are far smaller than their white counterparts, Quinn says it's not zero, and Belcher says cultural stigmas definitely don't help.
Especially in the African American community, because we've always been told, at least I'll speak for myself, I've been told growing up that you pray about it. You pray this away. God's going to take care of this.
NAMI's executive producer, Mariah Cornoa, says this is where they step in, supporting all forms of treatment, not one over another.
We need to really honor the validity that faith provides as a treatment source, but combining that with mental health treatment is really important.
We need to have that faith in ourselves, if you will, to understand that it's okay. It's okay if I see a therapist.
Overall, the National Institute of Mental Health finds 1 in 5 Americans live with a mental illness. But Cornoa says all 5 can be affected by this, so supportive programs like QPR help faith leaders know what and how to help.
Nobody has to carry the weight of other people's pain. We cannot fix people. Our job is to say we care and help is out there. Let's go find it together.
The goal is to make sure everyone knows they're not alone.
We need to start teaching our children at home. It's okay to cry. It's okay for men to cry. It's okay for us to be angry. It's okay for us to say no.
All right, now if you know anything about Black culture, after church, prayer and faith, of course, there's food. And one popular local soul food spot comes to mind, J. May's. Now we're told this Black-owned business success strives to inspire generations. Our Mario Dunham has the story.
So the more love you put into that food, the better people will be able to connect with it.
Jaleo Young is the owner of J. May's Home Cooking. For him, it's about the legacy and love his family puts into the food the restaurant serves. He also is a Black business owner who has worked for 11 years to be an example to his community.
My advice to anyone that wants to start a business, make sure it's something that you want to do, something that you love to do, because you're going to have a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. And if you're not built to endure that, you know, the business probably won't last. So just make sure it's something that you would do for free.
Young gets inspiration from his grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family. J. May's is named after his grandmother, Johnnie May, and her recipes have been passed down for generations. He attributes his resiliency to her, and he says he strives to honor her.
All of our food is Southern inspired, which is what my grandmother grew up on and which is what she provided and passed down to the generations.
Young draws from his heritage to serve the Toledo community. The inspiration has cultivated his Black business and helped J. May's success. His Black business flourishes due to an all-hands approach from his family to his community.
We're just trying to set an example that she set first, and we're just trying to show the generations to come that, you know, with hard work and sticking together, that we can accomplish anything.
All right, now J. May's restaurant is on Glendale near Byrne, open Tuesdays through Sundays. Now, you can't have dinner without dessert, so Jera's Heavenly Sweet Bakery is on Bancroft, and it's going to fix that sweet tooth issue you got. They're specializing in old-fashioned desserts with organic ingredients. The owner says she is proud to leave a legacy for both her children and others of color to be inspired by.
It makes me proud when, especially elderly black people, and I'm old, but when elderly people coming in and they are so excited for me and they're proud of me and they always take me aside and say, I'm so proud of what you're doing. It's leaving a legacy, not just for my own children, which is really important to me, but it's a legacy for other people of color who know that if I can do it, certainly you can.
Jera's Heavenly Sweet Bakery opened in downtown Toledo back in 2017, and it's on the lower level of the One Seagate building. Now, from faith to food to facts on health, the Centers for Disease Control says American racial and ethnic minority groups experience higher rates of illness and death across wide ranges of health conditions. This is including diabetes, hypertension, obesity, asthma, and heart disease. So this month, Wait High School leaders took time out to host a health fair. Vendors discussed topics like mental health, nutrition, and overall health in line with the event's theme, A Whole You, showcasing all the available resources.
We concentrate on the young babies and we concentrate on the adults, and teenagers are always left out. So this was my way of trying to promote healthiness in every aspect of their life.
All right, now one of the historically black fraternity and sorority organization's local chapters hosted a heart health event. Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated's alumni chapter hosted its third annual Skate Away Heart Disease at the Ohio Skate Mommy Rink. This is to honor their sorority sister, Victoria Penniman, who passed away from heart disease at just 35 years old. Heart disease is the leading cause of U.S. deaths in adults, especially among women and within the African American community.
Just being aware of heart disease, you need to get checked. Just simple signs that you may not think is a big deal is a big deal. Could be in the long run.
Funds from this event actually were divided between the American Heart Association as well as college student scholarships. Now, swimming is something many organizations are aiming to teach at an early age. But for the Bowling Green State University's head swim coach, he wasn't allowed to learn how until his teenage years. Our Chase Bachman explains how he went from shedding a life vest to shedding stereotypes.
Ricky Perkins is the man leading BGSU's swimming and diving programs. But as one of the few black coaches at BG, most people wouldn't guess that.
You know, it'd be like, you know, you're the swim coach, you know, and I walk in and I go, you must be the football coach or the basketball coach. And I'm the swim coach.
How Perkins got into the world of swimming is unlikely. At just 2 years old, Perkins' father died in a drowning accident.
You know, they were on a boat fishing in a lake, and the bigger boat came by and it tipped over, and he decided to swim for help. And so I say my dad died a hero.
It'd be more than a decade later before Perkins got in the water.
For a long time, my mom didn't really want us to swim. Again, just trying to protect us. Until one day we did go to the lake, and I remember, you know, I had a life jacket on, a rope tied to me, you know, and I was tied to the dock, you know, and so I wasn't going any place, you know. So I remember taking some lessons when I was almost maybe 13, 14 years old. And I was so much older. I was like with the little 6-year-old kids, you know, I'm a big 12-year-old with the little 6-year-old and 5-year-olds, you know, trying to learn to swim. It came almost naturally.
Before high school, Perkins was deciding between the football route and the swimming route, and decided to do what most other black kids didn't.
As an African American, you know, there's not many swimmers out there at all, so that maybe this may be something that just lead a different way.
Perkins has seen more and more black people get into competitive swimming over the years. He hopes his career is inspiring black kids to think about swimming too.
I hope I am in my own little way. You know, I'm just kind of in my own local area. I'm trying to do my best I can to be a good example.
Perkins believes there's one thing swimming has that all other sports don't, and it's why more black people should get into swimming.
It's the only sport that can save your life. You know, it doesn't matter how fast you run, how well you dribble a ball, or whatever else the thing you can do. But this place right here, you know, this place, you know, it could kill you. You know, and so you have to know how to swim. With African American kids, you know, I mean, their drowning rate's almost twice there is of a white kid or Caucasian kid. Out of all the sports in the world, swimming is the only sport that can save your life.
All right, now, St. Francis and Woodward High Schools used basketball to make a statement. This is the 4th year both schools teamed up for the annual This Game Is No Secret. Players wore the phrase, on their shirt to pay homage to a college basketball game in the 1940s, which had to be played in secret because of racism in the South. Across the country, several schools use Black History Month to bring awareness to the game and the historic lesson it serves.
The sport of basketball brought people together. It brings a connection. It transcended competition between all races, and it doesn't matter what color you are. You can come together and a sport like this, and it's a big meaningful thing with this month with us honoring Black History Month.
Now, proceeds from this event went to the Program Inc., which is an organization aimed at guiding Toledo's young boys without father figures to having skills they need to become proper men. In professional baseball, Jackie Robinson is known for breaking the color barrier, but technically that's not entirely true, since the title of that integration belongs to Moses Fleetwood Walker, who integrated the sport 60 years earlier than Robinson, right here in Toledo. Our Tyler Segerman shares his story.
They're nothing compared to what Moses Fleetwood Walker was doing back then.
A Glass City revolutionary whose stellar play on the baseball field remains mind-boggling to historians.
He caught the ball barehanded. So he was really far ahead of his time, and must have been really an outstanding ball player to be able to catch a fastball with his hand.
They played University of Michigan the last game of the year and beat them. And he made such an impression, along with a couple of other players, that they were invited to go to Michigan and play there.
Native of Steubenville, Ohio, and former Wolverine, as you just heard, Moses Fleetwood Walker possessed quite the talent when it came to the diamond. One that landed him on the Toledo Blue Stockings as a 26-year-old.
That first team won the pennant in the Northwestern League, one of the few pennants that Toledo's won ever since 1883, and he was a big part of the reason why.
The following season, they joined the Major League Sanctioned American Association, making Fleetwood the first African-American to play in the majors. But why is that moment not highlighted in history?
Well, that's hard to say. It was a long time ago.
A lot of the Major League players I have spoken to don't know anything about Moses Fleetwood Walker. Only a few of them even heard of who he was.
Jackie Robinson then came along in the 1940s and helped rewrite what we know today. But here in Toledo, that mark had already been set. An important memory that must be remembered.
It's kind of our claim to fame, and it's historically accurate, and it was a milestone event for Toledo.
Tyler Segerman, WTOL 11.
All right, now from baking the color breaker to breaking generational curses, Tyrone Jacobs Jr. embodies what it means to overcome. Jacob says he's dealt with the struggles of Toledo's inner city, neighborhood gun violence, and poverty. He and his older sister were raised by their single working mother because he says his father was in and out of jail and prison, and his childhood friends encouraged him to be bigger than the streets. Sadly, many are either dead or in prison, so Jacob says their stories drove him to beat the odds, graduating from the University of Toledo with an electrical engineering degree, and now he works as a contractor at NASA in Houston.
He saw me with my book bag on, like walking home, and he said, man, I don't know what you're going to be, but you're going to be something one day. I don't know what you are or what your dreams are, but I do know one day you will become something. And that stuck with me. I was probably in maybe 5th or 6th grade, and he ended up getting killed later on in life. So that's hard to know that someone would see something, or someone can see something in you so early. And then just knowing how their life ended up later on is very tough to witness. It's very hard to take in.
Jacob says teens in Toledo's inner city should feel free to take after him and know that there is a way out of what seems impossible.
He is on the Mount Rushmore in Toledo of prominent black men and men who have done great things in this community. There are a few, I'll put him up there with Jack Ford and a couple of the other ones, Bill Copeland and a few of the other great, Mr. Roberts, Pastor Bishop Roberts.
Here's another person who knows all too well how to overcome the impossible. He's a radio announcer, a DJ, and much more. It's Charlie Chuck, who's been a local household name for 60 years. He founded Toledo's first black-owned and operated radio station, WJUC 107.3. WTOL actually spoke with his family, saying prayers, perseverance, and patience has lasted him more than 27 years.
Charlie Chuck, known for his big personality and big dreams, getting a start on the radio back in the 60s.
He would try to be a disc jockey, but in Detroit, that was a hard thing to get into. He would hang out at the radio stations and try to get on the air, and they wouldn't really let you on the air. So the story is he was at WJLB, hanging out with some of the jocks, and he couldn't get a job, a paid job. So they told him, well, our sister station in Toledo is hiring, so you should go down there and try to get a job. So that's what he did.
Charlie worked his way up the ladder, becoming station manager, but he eventually wanted to change the way the platform was used. Getting involved when the Ku Klux Klan threatened to sue the Mississippi NAACP.
I said, no, they can't do that. We're not going to let them do it. I got angry. And so we got to raise some money so they can't do that. And I went on the air and raised in the end, I raised $10,001.
And that's when the idea to own his own radio station was born. It took years of work, but he finally got the green light from the FCC.
In '97, when he signed on, it was all washed away. And he was the happiest I have ever seen him in my life.
The juice was the real definition of starting from the bottom. All Charlie Chuck had was a piece of paper in hand and a fire in his heart to turn dead air into something the city had never had before.
We took an 8 CD changer, hooked it up to the antenna, and we had, as Chuck would say, go get as many CDs as you got at your house. And we set out at the studio before we got all our equipment in, and we sat there and just put in CDs and played them and rotate them for about 4 or 5 days until our engineer was able to come in and create us a studio.
It was a trial and a journey for this man of faith, but one he does not regret.
I always tell the people that's coming up now, if you have a good idea about a dream, especially one in radio, you think of the 3 P's: prayer, perseverance, and the main thing is patience. If that 10 years plus wasn't patient enough for me, I wouldn't have had this, wouldn't have started this.
Yes, now Charlie Chuck retired from the mic in 2015. Over at the African American Legacy Project Museum, the theme is Reflect and Inspire. And the exhibit honors those who made a difference in the community, showing photos and stories of African Americans excelling in sports, medicine, business, and education. The museum's director says telling these stories should inspire young people to learn about the past in order to work towards their futures.
As a young person, it makes me feel like I could actually do something and it be impactful and appreciated.
It's pretty joyful to watch them listen to someone in the eyes look like sometimes amazement. I didn't know that kind of thing, and kind of that's why we do what we're doing.
This is actually the museum's 20th anniversary. It's on Collingwood Avenue, and for tour times, go ahead, just call and make an appointment. Across the board, African Americans have been breaking barriers that we've been talking about for quite some time. And of course, they've been doing it for generations. Toledo Public Schools is celebrating some of those accomplishments by focusing on the first Black students, faculty, and staff to integrate the district. Andre Norrells shares this story.
Meet Ruth Whittle. She was one of the first of 7 kids to go to an all-white school in Drew, Mississippi.
It was scary, but it was something we had to do, something that we knew was the thing to do.
That happened back in 1965, about 60 years ago. But for TPS, Alonzo A. was its first African-American graduate in 1874, 150 years ago. An example of what TPS Superintendent Romulus Durant wants people to take from this event.
A good sense in regard to how progressive Toledo has been, TPS specifically when it comes to education and starting integration very early on, and not only students, but as well as in the staff.
Like the first Black teacher in the district, Frances Irene, or the district's first African-American female administrator, Louise Brower, and Dr. Crystal Ellis, TPS's first Black superintendent.
It set the tone. In fact, it set the tone for TPS, and it's a legacy that we all build and stand on to this day.
Carnell Smith is the principal at Scott. With Smith being a Bulldog himself, he says it makes this history mean even more.
And the fact that I'm an alumnus of Scott High School, being here in such a historic building, it means so much to me.
And at the event full of Black history, students performed the Black National Anthem. Attendees of all races stood together, some being moved by the words.
Beautiful. Now, this, of course, is all part of TPS celebrating 175 years as a district. Now, while celebrating the highs of Black history, it's important to acknowledge the areas that still definitely need to be addressed. The Toledo-Lucas County Public Library's main branch highlighted The Right to Read. It's an award-winning documentary which shares stories of an activist, a teacher, and families who fought for children's ability to read. A 2017 report by the National Assessment of Educational Progress found 18% of Black 8th graders reach reading proficiency.
I think the movie The Right to Read is a call to action, and it's asking community members to pay attention to what's happening, to ask what's going on with reading instruction, and to figure out ways that they can support children learning to read and learning to read well. Reading is a civil right, and if you can't read, there are so many doors that are closed to you in your future.
Now, she went on to say to fix this issue, it's going to take the whole community's support. So the science of reading, which teaches kids reading fundamentals, so your phonics, vocabulary, as well as comprehension. Another one of the historically Black fraternity and sorority organization's local chapters celebrated Black women recently. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated's alumni chapter hosted its 116th Founders Day celebration. Black Girls Rock an Exemplary Service. The purpose and belief is to be of service to all mankind.
You see women that has been stable, they have endured, and yet they have excelled in everything that they put their hands to do.
You know, every lady, every man is making history, and I feel honored to be able to be part of that and be recognized for the history, the small part that I might be playing.
Now, there were 8 honorees overall, and the chapter has actually raised $200,000 in scholarships for the past 4 decades. Now, of course, what is Black History Month without some music? The city continued its celebrations through a jazz performance over at Mott Library. Is that performance here with those funky tunes is featuring drummer Damon Cook and musician friends that he's been performing with for over 20 years. Cook started performing actually with his father, who's a Toledo jazz great, guitarist and singer Leon Cook. Now, this celebration honors Black History Month in a sense of where the music came from, and is also seen as an opportunity for some unity.
You know, music is one thing that helps catapult that thing, you know, and it's one thing that we all have in common. We all love music, no matter what race we are. So it happens to come from down south and a certain group of people, but it's for everybody.
So from music to education, food, fun, and faith. Thanks so much for joining us here on WTOL 11 for our Black History Month special presentation. I'm Tatiana Cash. Have a great night.